Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back, 'cause it's root for the home team. They don't win, it's a shame, 'cause it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Welcome to Let's Get To, the baseball podcast from the fans' perspective. Now here's your host, James Christopher.
How cool was that? If you're listening to the podcast, you got to go back and watch the first few seconds of the web series version of this, because we have a celebrity cameo. I want to thank Bunker from the Fayetteville Woodpeckers for coming on and wishing us a happy 100th episode. That's really cool. And you have really, Bunker, you are now my favorite MiLB mascot. Sorry, Slugger the Sea Dog. It was nice, but Bunker, that was really awesome. And thanks to the entire Fayetteville Woodpeckers front office for putting that together. I found out that it was going to happen, and then I just got this video clip, and it was really cool, and it kind of made my day. And that was pretty neat. We do have a great show for you today. We're going to be talking to Emma Tiedemann from the Portland Sea Dogs. Maybe she can get the word to Slugger. And we are going to be talking. Stu Clary's here. Andy Tom Cheston is here. Scott McIntyre, Jess Canaster is here. We are going to be talking about all things baseball and minor league baseball. And we're going to have thick skins when we do it, which brings me to the Arlington Rangers. Now, listen, I know Arlington, what it's like to be a team in the crossfires, or to be associated with a team in the crossfire. You don't think the Astros would love to turn the comments off on a tweet? When you do that, you actually open yourself up for even more criticism, even more public scorn. You don't think the Astros would love to just turn off comments for a while and not deal with bang bang jokes and trash can stuff? It's it kind of reveals, if you think about the Houston-Dallas rivalry, and I'm not just talking about sports, I'm talking about life. It kind of says everything you need to know about that. Look, Rangers, you did it wrong. You shouldn't have told Tatis, not that whole bit. You shouldn't have ever happened. We're going to get into that in a lot this show. But what you can't do is, when you lose a game, share the score, and you can't put "not today" trolls and not allow comments on your tweet. It's a bad look. It shows you have no thick skin. Hey, just don't post the score. Nobody's looking for that. So that's not how you want to do it. I would love to not have to read bang bang comments when the Astros post something. But again, thick skin. Sorry, I'm a little off. The Bunker thing was cool. It really literally just arrived. I was told I'd be getting a special thing from the Woodpeckers. So again, thank you to Victoria, who I assume has something to do with it, and all the people in the Woodpeckers front office. That really made my day. And like I said, we got a great show for you. So stay with us.
On deck, the Let's Get To interview. Brought to you by Fine Line Sportswear.
So it's very exciting to catch up with one of our favorite guests, Emma Tiedemann, for the voice of the Portland Sea Dogs. Emma, how's it going?
It's going great, actually. How are you doing?
I'm great, and I'm trying to look at the bright side of things. So, how cool of the universe to give you plenty of time to settle into your job before you actually started calling baseball games.
Right. I mean, that's kind of how I've been looking at it. I've never been able to spend so much time exploring a new place, as I've kind of been given with 2020, but it's been awesome. And I've absolutely fallen in love with Portland. So I'm very happy to be where I am.
So what about the community in Portland has really kind of grabbed you?
Well, I mean, the first thing that struck me was how nice everyone was and how genuinely nice they were. Whether it was my landlord speeding up the process so I could get into a place to live by my first day of work, which turned into, work from home. And, everyone is just so kind and they're so happy to be up here that when you tell them you're not from around here, they will tell you where the best lobster rolls are. They'll tell you where the places off the beaten trail are. Like, it's great. And the weather is tremendous. It's 65 degrees right now and sunny. And after 18 years of living in Texas, I'm
doing some exact research right now just to give you some perspective of what you know what? It's only 101 in Austin right now. I don't know why I'm complaining. Easy. But that's so great. So you really had a chance. Now, will you stay through the winter? Like, will you keep are there duties for you? Will you come home for a bit? Because I do think the script might get flipped as we get closer to December.
Yeah, the plan is to stay up here. Our owners and our front office are very lucky to still be fully employed with our full salaries, and even our game day employees are being paid throughout this season as well. And we've kind of been guaranteed that through the end of the year. So I'll be up here working on our 2021 media guide and whatever other ballpark projects and improvements we have. But I'll be up here for winter, so we might have to check back in December.
I definitely will. We'll just send you a lifeline or something. We opened the show with a very special guest. We had Bunker from the Woodpeckers came in to open our show. And now that he has become number one, my favorite mascot, I thought I would now check in with my now number two. How is Slugger?
He's doing great. He's hanging in there. I've actually been able to hang out with him a little bit. And he's doing as good as you can, he's right. Social distancing, having parties and that kind of stuff, but he's doing okay.
Just don't tell him he got demoted to number two, but when Bunker comes on the show, you have to raise him up. That's how it goes. What have you guys been doing? Have y'all been able to do anything at the park at all to kind of keep some sort of connection going with the community? I know some have done concerts or drive-in movie theater nights, that kind of thing. We have done luckily a couple events. Maine is still very strict on the amount of people in those kind of spaces. So we can have a whopping 50 people in the ballpark at a time. Wow.
And through that, we can actually split the field in two for our dining in the diamond. Weekend dinner options, so we can actually have 100 people. And then we also have had links, which is super cool. We have 9 platforms set up at the suite level and a course on the field, and it's kind of like Top 12-esque. That's my favorite because we get to play it during lunch if we want to. So we've been able to do as much as we can, honestly, but it's really tough when your hands are tied when you can only have 100 people in your ballpark at a time. And there's labor costs and food costs and all that kind of stuff. But
I think that's the first I've heard, basically turning it into a Topgolf, though. That's that and the blue Wahoos turning it into an Airbnb. That's pretty creative.
Yeah. It's definitely fun. And we got to build all the platforms ourselves and stuff too. So it was a good team building exercise also, but it's been fun.
When we last talked, you had moved on from your previous gig. You had won a championship, and now you got to move up to AA. And that big moment has been delayed a little bit. What is it going to be like to finally sit behind the mic and call a Sea Dogs game?
I've been already dreaming of that moment. I think it'll just be extra special once it does come, because not only will it be, my AA debut and able to kind of check that off my list of goals, but also it'll just be good to have baseball back. And I think that, we've been able to kind of look at minor league baseball, especially as that sense of community. And we've been maybe spoiled in it, and maybe we took it for granted, and now we just know how special it is and how much we miss it. So I think it'll be very, very special. I can't wait.
Well, one of the things we do here, this is kind of a carryover from my film world, where you should always recognize the people that do it great, that are awesome. And so we have our Let's Get To awards, and you are our guest of the year.
Oh, whoa. Wow. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So we'll touch base after the interview and you'll get a plaque and all that stuff out. We'll get it out to you in a couple of weeks. You know, the mail service has been interrupted. I've been told. So we'll get it as soon as we can.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Very much. So I guess, just how are you going to keep the time between now and finally going? I know that I'm going to go to the Innovator Summit online, which will be weird. My first time and online. What are you going to be up to?
Definitely Innovator Summit. Then I don't know. I think I need to learn how to snowboard or something. That's kind of the thing to do up here in the winter. They recommend that I have a winter hobby so I don't hate the winter and the snow. So that's kind of terrifying to think about, but I don't know. Honestly.
Do you have a coat? Okay, that's all I'm worried about. I mean, I'm going to be your mother for a second.
Yeah, so I do have a pea coat that was my grandfather's when he was in the Navy in World War II. And even though he has shrunk since then, I apparently was his size when he was 19 or 20 in the Navy. So he has passed that down to me. It's amazing. I can't feel any cold in it. So I at least have a coat. But
yeah, I just had this flashback. You mentioned, now we're going to get personal for a second. I had to be rescued from my sleeping bag in Bosnia because it was when I was deployed there. It was so cold that I had basically put everything I had in the sleeping bag with me and somehow flipped up, and the zipper was underneath me, and I freaked out.
Oh my gosh, that's terrifying.
I don't know why that fits in a baseball show, but that's what I do. Well, Emma,
places.
Yeah, really. I just want to thank you again, though, for one, being such a great example to everyone for what you're doing, and also just for being a big part of our baseball journey and our show. It really means a lot to us.
Yeah, anytime. I love coming on.
The Minor League Mind with Jess Canaster, brought to you by Marco Fine Arts.
All right, so we're excited to be here on the Minor League Mind with Jess Canaster. First, Jess, 100 episodes.
100 episodes. It's normally when you reach a milestone like that, I feel like it's big, it's momentous, but then at the same time you think, well, it feels just like yesterday. How did we get here? 2020 has completely changed that. It feels like it was 5 years ago that you and I met in Midland. It's almost like we're only at 100.
That's true. I feel like I've been locked in this office for like a year and a half. What have I been doing besides making episodes?
Well, and having watched the episodes and seeing your hat wall and your bobblehead wall, I almost feel like I know when something moves because I've seen it so many times. Like,
that ought to be the game where we track what's happening with these.
I mean, it's no different than the spot the difference in the two pictures game that you play on the scoreboard at a ball game.
It's really no different than that. I feel like that's almost what I'm doing accidentally. Some of it's ADD, some of it's by design. There's a whole lot of going on. I do want to dive into something. I don't know if you saw the episode. This drops Friday, so the episode 2 days ago. Jeff Lance, the senior communications director of MiLB, doesn't look super fired up about negotiation. That's me reading into it. I try to respect what he wants to talk about on the show. We're not a gotcha show. I'm not going to try to put the screws to him. You're a smart guy. What do you make of these things, particularly in the light of they're changing negotiating teams? Like people from Oklahoma change underwear, which isn't so often, but maybe more often or less. I don't know.
Because I otherwise would have no idea.
Yeah. But what do you make of all this?
I think first off, it's encouraging that, I don't know. You can look at it two ways. One, you can say it's encouraging that the negotiating group is almost back to where it was initially, because there were so many reports of things being agreed upon and the two sides progressing forward. And then when minor league baseball and Pat O'Connor stepped in and said, before we start renegotiating again, we're going to change the committee around This was at the beginning of August. We want to change the committee around. And then they came out with a proposal that was a little bit different, or I guess it was a lot different than what was initially being worked on. And Major League Baseball came out and said, this is a step backwards. We don't like this. I mean, you can look at it from two ways. You could say, well, one, there was progress being made. So for anybody who's rooting for minor league baseball to get anything they want out of this, then anything that's not progress is bad. But then as we've kind of seen with Major League Baseball, how they negotiate and what they negotiate for, maybe it's not such a bad thing that Major League Baseball is upset by any sort of proposal changes or negotiating tactic or personnel changes, because they showed themselves to kind of be not very much a hero and more so a villain when it came to negotiations to get the 2020 Major League season underway. So I think you can look at that from either side. And then, of course, there are kind of growing factions within minor league baseball. And I think it's not to minor league baseball's benefit at all to have two or multiple beyond two points of view and desired gains from conversations, since it seems like right now 160 is just not going to stay. There's going to be some form of contraction. And so that's causing some sort of scatter between minor league baseball, the office, and minor league baseball, the individual leagues and teams. Whereas minor league baseball, the office, they want to keep some power. They don't want to be absolved. And, nobody wants to lose their job unnecessarily, or even necessarily. Nobody, if there's anything they can do to save it, they want to save their jobs.
Right.
But in minor league baseball, the teams, kind of the opposite of that, where they'd be willing to make some concessions, and they may not care. And I'm speaking as an individual. They may not care if minor league baseball, the offices in Florida, if they close up, because it means that they get to keep operating as they want as minor league organizations. And they'd be willing to maybe, dare I say, suckle on the teeth of Major League Baseball and its money a little bit, because there would be some sort of franchisor sort of thing, akin to teams, akin to like a McDonald's.
McDonald's, yeah. What I find interesting about this, and maybe you could speak to it, because I think you're right. And it does seem like this is Major League Baseball's negotiating tactic of disrupt the people you're talking with. You can make the analogy that part of why Major League Baseball did what they did to the players was looking into breaking up the union. I mean, you might even argue them not punishing the Astros was about sowing dissension in the union before you enter the CBA conversation. With minor league baseball, you pointed out it's one organization, but it's also 160 very different demographics, very different income. Is that part of the basis, part of the idea? Break it all up and make them harder to negotiate as one group?
Well, I think everybody is going to have different interests all the time, and that's fine. That's never going to change, and I don't think that's something that's created or been created in this case by Major League Baseball. Everybody is just going to have different things they're looking out for themselves. But I think to start off, in hindsight, what seemed like just kind of a evil negotiating tactic that's the far extreme, and then we'll work it back towards the middle as we negotiate, the high ball, low ball sort of thing, now seems a little bit more deliberate, because if you bring to the table, we're going to eliminate teams, but don't worry, AAA and AA, you are mostly safe, and when it comes to ratifying a new thing, you have the majority of the votes. Your votes are weighted more heavily, and so as long as we don't take any AAA teams away and we potentially find a way to make it more lucrative for AAA, then, maybe you will side with us more readily. AA, under the only list that's been exposed or released, leaked, however you want to look at it, a few AA teams. And then
right.
Thought it was as many as 4.
Okay, I know Chattanooga, Erie.
Jackson.
Oh,
and Binghamton.
Binghamton, that's right. You're right. Okay.
So for as many as 4, and then more high A and low A teams. So it wasn't just going to be hey, you top 120 existing teams, you get to stay. We're just going to wipe out everybody below you, so you have nothing to worry about. It's no, we're going to pick off little bits here and there. And so I think that really, whether it was on purpose or not, it has served the purpose of really exposing minor league baseball and forcing them as the individual teams to scatter towards what is in their own best interests, and really exposing that AAA may and does have very different frame of mind when it comes to what is permissible with this new PBA as opposed to high A or low A. And of course, then even within AAA, as it currently stands, or as the plan currently stood, which almost a year ago now, and who knows what the update is on that.
Yeah.
There was a AAA team that was supposed to drop down to single A. And, that's the only sort of blemish upon AAA is one team changed affiliations, but they dropped down, changes of leagues, but they dropped down multiple levels, especially with the talk that the California League, where the Fresno Grizzlies would be dropping to in place of the Lancaster Jethawks. They have been talking about swapping that from being a high A league, advanced A league, to a low A league. So the Fresno Grizzlies going from having guys who would soon be major leaguers to guys who are fresh, especially with the loss of short season baseball. Those are the rookie guys. Those are the rookies. Those are the freshly drafted, maybe not high schoolers, but those are the 21, 22-year-olds may not make it out of that level of baseball.
One of the things too is, worst case scenario is a wild, wild west where there is no MiLB. They form a new thing altogether, and then it's whoever signs up first. Basically, it's musical chairs. And to your point, AAA teams, and to a lesser extent, AA teams, are still going to have an advantage over your single A teams.
Yeah, and I think the one thing potentially preventing that, and I don't know, that's where the real divide between just the financial status of AAA all the way down the ladder is the proposed changes to what it would cost to join the minor leagues under a major league, either under a brand new minor league system as governed by Major League Baseball if the PBA does expire at the end of September, or even if the new PBA gets ratified, there's going to be an increase in fee. I believe it was $5 million before, and it'll be as much. Major League Baseball or minor league baseball, when they had their middle transition team, when it was 2 weeks ago, their proposal, I believe, was up to $35 million, but the previously agreed upon number was 20. But regardless, that's a $15 million increase,
right?
Even on the low end from what it was previously. So I think you'll see any team, and maybe it won't even matter level, but AAA teams by and large do pretty well attendance-wise, and so they do pretty well financially, and they could probably better afford if the PBA lapses. They have to re-enter the new minor league baseball system, and they have to pay $20 million to get in. Whereas AA teams, high A teams who draw 3,000 to 4,000 people per game, even if they do have new stadiums that get them luxury boxes and luxury suite decks and that sort of thing, they would say, we need to not have this happen. We need to not lapse so that we don't have to pay $20 million because we won't be able to. And the thing that I read, and I have no idea when it was at this point, it's all blended together, was the idea that if the PBA lapses, that Major League Baseball, might just say altogether, you know what, we're going to redo this from scratch. Let's only have 90. Let's only have 3 levels. And that was in a Baseball America piece, I want to say August 5th, August 6th, right around the time that the first change in negotiating teams was happening. And the idea that teams that were previously safe, because it was going to be 4 levels, now it's only going to be 3 levels potentially, and further just kind of screwing with everything. It's a terrifying time, I think, for any minor league baseball team that isn't maybe. I'd say AAA is probably 100% safe, and that's just a guess of mine. But AAA is 100% safe. AA on down. I mean, the fact that there are AA teams, even AA teams that play in ballparks that are not terrible, that are in good condition, or have recently, I want to say Binghamton recently put in, or was going to put in something like $15 million into their
$15 million at the end of last season. They did with the Mets approving the design. So
that I mean, the Mets, from a governing standpoint, they're their own thing. So, but they managed to screw up their brand new fancy ballpark in Queens. No, they put $15 million in, and they're still on this list for some arbitrary, unknown reason. And so I think, ultimately it's in minor league baseball's interest, and I don't know if it's possible to, but I think it's in their best interest to try and stay together and not allow themselves to fracture too much, because I don't know that there is a scenario in which a non-unified minor league baseball, both the governing body office and the individual teams, I don't know that there's a scenario in which they are not unified and still all benefit. And I think, even though the minor league office has different values and different priorities than the minor league teams, I think what either organization would have to give up if they get their way is less than if they stay all together. And I don't know that that's possible at this point, but since nothing is coming out in the public, I can just claim stupid ignorance and say, oh yeah, they still want to work together. There's still a chance they'll work together, and then just be further bombshelled when that is not the case.
Hang on one second. Allergies. All right.
No worries. There's been smoke here, so.
It's awful. The dust is crazy. All right, so let's wrap this up. All right, so I guess we'll all find out in September when everybody else does. We'll obviously have you be keeping the finger on the pulse, as it were. I do want to point out that it is our 100th episode, and we do awards. And Jess, you're going to be our contributor of the year. You will have an award in the mail. Thank you so everything that you brought to the show, from being really open about your own journey through minor league baseball to also adding a level of intellectual acuity that we wouldn't have. Scott and Andy are great, but let's be honest.
Well, I appreciate the award. I look forward to it in the mail. Hopefully I have it before Christmas. Just the way the mail's working, but also, I
thought that was a shot at me. I was like, whoa, I can take that shit back. No, exactly right. I'll just put it with my ballot.
Well, so then I'll never get it.
And now to the Dugout, featuring Darien Sills-Evans.
We are excited to bring back one of our favorite guests, Darien Sills-Evans, to go in the dugout. Darien, first of all, crazy stuff in California. I assume you guys are safe from fires, though. You're not anywhere near all that stuff.
We are near-ish. We're not in any danger, but we get a lot of smoke and stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Stu Clary, who's in the segment right before yours, is from Northern California, and he did his from the hotel he was evacuated to, which I appreciate his dedication.
Wow.
He could have been like, dude, you can just say no. It's not that serious yet.
That's a trooper.
So looking at the New York Mets right now, they are sitting, 12-14, but only 2.5 out of first. What are you seeing from the Mets as far as, is there any part of you that's hopeful they're going to catch, or at least get into that second spot and catch the Marlins?
I mean, that would be nice, but there's no part of me that really thinks that they're going to do it. I mean, I don't think so. I think it's the Marlins are going to run away with it. And I think the Marlins will I guess they can't catch the Braves at this point. There's not enough games, but they, the Mets are not going to get there.
Isn't it weird though? It's weird to look at it and go, they're not going to catch the whoever, but because you forget, well, we've only played 20 games. What are you talking about? Like,
right.
Much has been made of like Arenado's struggles and Altuve's struggles. And those guys have those struggles all the time, they just have them in June. And it's such a weird season. I guess that's why a lot of people are saying it should be considered, I don't want to say invalid. I think that's, silly. But one of the things I did want to talk to you about, because you've always, I think you always have a really great perspective on social issues when we talk privately. What do you make of the culture in the Cincinnati Reds? You're also an old enough baseball fan to know Marge Schott.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah. What do you make of the situation with Tom Brenneman?
It's unfortunate also, just for that organization, because they've had to deal with so much kind of intolerant talk in their past. But the thing is, and it's not a cancel culture thing, I think at this point in our society, people have to be held accountable, and people are making more of an effort to be held accountable. And it used to be major organizations like the Reds or MLB in general, or just any other company, would kind of ignore that kind of talk and move on. Someone would apologize and that would be it. But the marketplace no longer allows that, because I think you realize, or at least the people in power realize, that, finally, hey, there are gay baseball fans too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm glad you brought the distinction between cancel culture, because this isn't that, right? Like, to me, cancel culture is finding out somebody said something 15 years ago and deciding now he needs to pay the price. Right. This happened in real time as the public voice of an organization.
Yeah. Someone has to, you can't just apologize for that. You can't just say that wasn't in my heart, especially when what you said was so clearly a casual use of the word.
Right. And it's like, the funny thing is we were talking before, there's no way we obviously heard the tail end of what must have been an entirely inappropriate, hateful conversation, because he was so matter of fact about the population of people who live in that city.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know. MLB has had, not just Cincinnati, but it's just in general, they're still dealing with a lot of race issues, which I don't think they're or social issues, not necessarily race issues, but I don't know if and when they're ever going to really come out and support a ball player who's gay and still active. I don't know if they're ever going to really make an initiative to be to do more reach out or outreach to urban youths in the United States, as opposed to building baseball academies in Dominican Republic.
Yeah,
and these are things that they should really kind of be forced to address at this point, because fans from all walks of life give MLB their money, and they don't necessarily see themselves represented in the product.
Yeah. It's funny. Every year on June 1st, MiLB changes their logo to the Pride logo and their Pride variant, and just the hate that comes through. And what I don't understand is beyond, I think, the industry you and I are both in, that's a big part of the population. You have I don't want to say no choice, but we wouldn't get very far if we were super intolerant people. So for us, it's just, at least for me, it's so matter of fact. But even if you don't agree with MiLB's Pride initiative, then just don't go that night. Like, that's the part I don't understand. You can just ignore it. If you don't like Star Wars, don't go to Star Wars night. It's like, why are you going?
They're going to show up that night and complain and be disrespectful. I know, it's very bizarre. But I remember going to Jackie Robinson Day might have been the first one at Shea Stadium because it was Bill Clinton there. Jackie Robinson's wife was there.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big deal. But there were people definitely in the stands who were not like feeling it.
Yeah, I guess that's true, right? I guess that is progress in America. It took forever. Like how long till Arizona made Martin Luther King a national holiday? Right. Speaking of Jackie Robinson, you and I have always had a running conversation about the Negro Leagues. What did you think of MLB's? I thought a patch was lame. I hope next year they do something bigger where fans can be involved. But overall, what did you think?
They could have done something more. I mean, but that's kind of the conversation that we're always having with MLB, and including this one, where it's like they do just enough, I think, to let you know from a PR perspective that how they feel about things, but they don't do enough to make real change or inspire, real change for the future of the game or the fans of the game. So.
That's again so weird to me too, because even if you don't care about that level of inclusion, mm-hmm. The fact is you could have rolled out 30 teams in throwback uniforms and therefore sold 30 teams worth of jerseys. Like, why wasn't the Astros wearing the Austin Black Senators uniform? Like, you could have tied it to your region and done that.
And does it come down to a thing where they test that idea in market research and discover that maybe the fans of certain states were not interested in seeing their teams in
what uniform? Are you saying about my state, Dan?
I'm not saying Texas. It could be Missouri. It could be anywhere. But is that part of it? I mean, and I think we do know that baseball is losing a lot of Black fans. It's losing a lot of Black players. And so, and with the polarized country that we live in now, are we in danger of making baseball once again this sport that only appeals to half of our society?
Rich white people and then people from Latin America. Yeah, it's and I would say in defense of the home state, we'd probably be way more open to Negro League uniforms and the Astros have only had Pride Night twice. And but that's very weird because Houston's a very big, diverse city, but people got angry. I don't know.
And I assume there were gay people in the stands on Pride Night, right? I mean, And do people consider that there are gay people in the stands on every night?
Or the fact that there's probably a lot more gay ball players than you think they do. They're just living a miserable experience, not being able to be themselves.
Yeah, sure.
And I think, we get into this conversation with, and you hear it from straight white men. Because when I was in the military, still very much don't ask, don't tell, and all of that stuff. And so, there would always be this idea that I don't want to get. Well, just because he's gay doesn't mean he's into you. So, take yourself off a pedestal, buddy. You might not be all that hot.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that still a part of homophobia? Because I know growing up, for sure, it was always like, if you were friends with a gay person, you were concerned that you would wind up in a relationship with them somehow. I don't know.
I had a lot of girlfriends I wanted to be. But I had a lot of girlfriends I wanted to be in a relationship with, and that never worked out. So I just would have been friend zoned by them too. I don't know.
Right. Everyone's just in the friend zone.
Absolutely. So just real quick then, overall, man, what have you thought about the season? Just in sum, any big takeaways?
It was a lot. It was more fun than I guess I would have expected it to be, if only from kind of an anthropological point of view. I mean, years from now, we're going to look back on this season and look at the cutouts in the stands and look at, the possibilities that could have been if teams had 50 more games to catch up, or players weren't injured, and it's like all of this stuff will come to it. But when you look at the product that was put on the field, it was a fine product. It was just kind of weird to look at on television, and but it still was the game, And whether or not we have to do this again next year, which is a very real possibility, I would think that the presentation for no, you're shaking your head, but the presentation for a 2021 season with knowing what we've known and learning what we've learned, I would imagine would be on par or as enjoyable as anything else. And I would look forward to the idea of having, maybe even in a pandemic situation, now that we know how, maybe going back to maybe 100 game season, maybe a 120 game season, something like that.
Oppo TalkO, a fan's view of the show.
All right, so we are jumping into the Oppo TalkO segment. Stu, your dedication to this show is unmatched. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, we're doing great. So there's a huge fire. It's I heard this morning that it was bigger than the District of Columbia, and it's where the southeastern edge of that fire. It's massive wildfire that was brought on by lightning a few days ago. And our town, I guess, has been on the national news because I've been getting calls and text messages from friends and family all over the place. And so my wife and I, this is Thursday morning. We evacuated Tuesday at 3 a.m.
Oh, man.
And we stayed in a hotel. We're actually in the hotel room right now. We're going to check out. We still don't have, our house is still in the mandatory evacuation zone. But we're going to go back. We heard power's going to come back on. And so we'd just rather be at the house. We're going to figure it out. We feel like, knock on wood, that we're out of immediate fire danger. It's super smoky here right now. The air quality levels are terrible. I saw that AQI is like at 220, which is like a dangerously unsafe levels. So but life goes on and we'll figure it all out.
Between that and the 2 hurricanes coming for Texas, 2020, huh?
What else would we have?
One of the unwritten rules is that you should listen to the fire department. But let's talk unwritten rules, Stu. I felt like you really were wanting to chomp at home runs off of 3-0 counts. Man, what is your take on all of this?
I don't understand why that became an issue. That was the Rangers manager being butthurt. Come on. If you don't want someone to hit a 3-0 home run up by whatever, then don't throw a meatball or don't go 3-0. The kid's job is to hit home runs. I'm glad that he stole third base the next night.
I was going to ask about that, yeah.
Fantastic. I don't understand what the furor was all about. I don't understand the clapback. I noticed that a lot of players and people in the game came to Tatis's defense, and that's good. I'm glad to see that.
Yeah, it's weird because there's been a lot of another controversy too. I don't know how much you've been able to follow it with what you guys are dealing with. The Cincinnati Reds play-by-play. Have you followed this?
I heard about Tom Brenneman yesterday, and I heard what he said, and you just got to be smarter than that, Tom. I mean, you're about to lose your really cushy baseball announcer job. Yeah. Don't be an idiot. There's plenty of people that want that job that won't drop the homophobic something
slur. I guess you would say,
right,
yeah.
Right.
So I guess
go ahead.
No,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I just the whole unwritten rules thing is lost on me. Now, my expertise begins and ends with high school baseball, and we want to be respectful of each other, but no one's going to bat an eyelash at a high school kid that puts a great swing on a ball 3-0 regardless of the score.
Especially when you think about these unwritten rules and this particular one, this isn't baseball 25 years ago. A 6-run lead. I mean, heck, you're an Ace fan. You had 2 5-run comebacks in this last week when I thought I was waking up to gaining a game on you guys?
I mentioned high school baseball a few years ago. We were in actually a crosstown rivalry game, and we had a kid on our team who was a very gifted athlete on the football field, super fast, and was a good baseball player. But, we batted him ninth. We took advantage of his speed. He wasn't a great hitter, but he could lay down pearl bunts and beat him out every time. And we had just again, we're in a rivalry game, and we had kind of a biggish inning to go up late, and he and I had a thing worked out where he had the green light to bunt. He could bunt for a base hit, and 2 outs, bases loaded. The third baseman was playing way back. It's like, of course, he saw that and he laid it down. The other coach had words for me, but we talked about it afterwards. It was kind of a heat in the moment thing, but you just want to be respectful, I think. But at the same time, you don't want to. It's almost different. If you're going to you hit one off the fence, you don't want to stop at first base, because to me, that's disrespectful.
Yeah, I think the whole thing's weird, especially with the Rangers having the hole. And, I've no love lost for the Arlington Rangers.
Right.
I try to create some distance, unlike other members of the baseball media. But, them dropping the pop-up last year so that way Minor could get his strikeout. That, to me, if that's what you're capable, it would be like me complaining when I find out another team steals signs. Like, have a little moral, like, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Just consistency, I guess. But let me ask you this. This is the big debate Scott McIntyre and I've had. No hitter, you're a guy that bunts for base hits all the time. How does that play in the unwritten rules?
I think bunting for a base hit's fine. If you're trying to win, you're trying to win the game. I had this debate with a couple of my assistant coaches. And we've talked about before, the team that I coach, we're in a very good position. We have a very good team. We have one of the 2 years ago, last year, or I should say 18 and 19, we had one of the best teams in our state. And early in the 18 season, we actually had a perfect game thrown against us. And late in the game, I tried to get one of our guys to bunt for a base hit, and unsuccessfully, because it was a perfect game. But one of our coaches, who actually has 9 years of pro experience, we had a long discussion about it. He said, you just don't do that. You don't do that. But I point out to him, Mike, we're only down 1-0. I need a base runner.
Absolutely.
Let's put this guy in the stretch. Now, I did see a video the other night of not Verlander. Scherzer had the no-hitter and hit a guy in the elbow with the perfect game on the line.
Yeah.
And he actually put his elbow, which was, of course, armored up, he tried to get hit to break up a perfect game in the 9th inning of a 6 or 7 or 8-0 game.
Yeah.
I would have an issue with that, certainly. And certainly I would have an issue with that. That's different. I think bunting is still a hit, and that's a tool. You think about guys, I don't know why Otis Nixon just came to mind. If you take the bunt away from that guy, you're taking his offensive game away from him.
Right.
And there's not as many of those guys around now in 2020 as there were in 1990.
Yeah, but let's say Fires is throwing a no-hitter against Houston, and Correa bunts. That might be Bush League, but Altuve, that is part of his game, and you should have game planned for the fact that dude drag bunts all the time.
Correa bunting I wouldn't even have an issue with that depending on the situation. Matt Olson, who faces those extreme shifts, he occasionally lays down a bunt down the third baseline. So I wouldn't have, depending on the situation, I wouldn't have a problem with the bunt. And the other thing is, if Correa's bunting, or if Olson is bunting, you know what they're not doing? They're not hitting 400 feet in the seats.
That's right.
So,
and I think you're exactly right too. If it's 1-0, you throw the bunt down and you get somebody on base. Maybe if it's 10-0, maybe that's different. But
let's get that guy, make him the pitcher. Let's make him uncomfortable. Let's get him throw out of the stretch. You don't know what's going to happen.
Right. All right, Stu. We're going to run then. You guys both be safe. Let us know if there's anything we can do here, man. But we really hope everything's okay.
Thanks. I'm looking for wood to knock on. There's some right there. We've heard some really terrible stories about friends and people we know that have lost their houses just outside of town. It looks like right now that we're going to be okay.
I am knocking on wood for you.
There you go. There you go. Hey, James, it's great to see you, and we'll hope to see you again soon.
And now, the Big League Chew, an eye on the majors. Brought to you by Zoomer Sport.
All right, so we're back on the Big League Chew. Now, Scott, this is your segment. So the unwritten rule is that you are supposed to help come up with topics for this program. I bet we have one.
Okay, we can start there. Look, you don't lay down a bunt to break up a no-hitter. I'm on record with that. You don't do that. That's a big, huge, awesome, awful, horrible no-no. You do not do that. But swinging away on a 3-0 count with the bases loaded, here's your options to the Rangers. A, don't load the bases. B, throw one of the first 3 pitches in that 3-0 count over the plate. Or C, just hang your head and watch the ball fly over the fence. I got no problem with this guy hitting the 3-0 dinger over the wall. You served it up. He hit it, meat. Get over it. I don't. This is one of those things that I'm hearing about the unwritten rule, and it does not make Scott very happy, because I don't think this is one. The only thing I believe that he did wrong was he shook off the sign on 3-0. But when I coached, and the guy who did this actually when I was in Poland, we had a similar situation, no outs, up on another team. I think it was a scrimmage actually, 3-0 count. And the guy at the plate, I gave the take sign, and he hit the next pitch over the wall. And as he rounded third, he's between second and third, and he's got me locked in his eyes. That's the only time you better ever shake me off. And that's the rule I always heard. If you're going to shake me off on a take sign, you better hit the ball over the fence. So in my book, Tatis did exactly what he should have done, and the Rangers need to get over it or get better.
But you know what? There's that baseball part of it. There's also and it does down to everything you've had to listen to me complain about since we've been friends. This lack of intellectual consistency. First of all, I was in Arlington when they went up on the Astros 10-0 and then barely held on to win 11-10. Good buddy of ours, our Ivan Clausia, who was in Chance of Snow, the Rangers fan, will tell you he was more upset walking out of that park than I was, and they won. So one, the Rangers know that a 6-run lead isn't safe. And the Rangers beat the Baltimore Orioles 30-3 sometime a few years ago. And to me, saying it, I don't know if it's a rule that should be violated. And we can, I do think there are cases where you can bunt to break up a no-hitter, maybe very few. If bunting's always part of your game, then you should know in your scouting report, this dude bunts, but whatever. That's not the conversation. The conversation is,
I'm feeling itchy. You're making me feel scratchy and itchy as you say that.
But I still think we can make the same argument, defend the bunt if you know it's coming. But in my mind, the other part of this is going to the media and crying about it, and then having your own manager kind of throw you under the bus about it. How does that work?
Yeah. To see the next pitch go behind, was it Machado? Went behind Machado's head. That was just absolutely ridiculous. It shows, first of all, it shows me that the pitcher did that on his own. There wasn't some sign from the dugout to have from the manager, from Woodward or Woodward, whomever, to tell him to throw behind or throw at the next guy. This whole headhunting stuff is about to get on my last nerve. People think that everything was, we throw up and in and we hit guys in the head, and that's how they did it in the old days. No, what they really did in the old days, whenever they wanted to take care of things, was you heard a knock on your clubhouse door, and it was a guy waiting outside that had beef with you, and you'd fight him outside under the bleachers. I mean, that's what they did in the big leagues. That's how things got taken care of in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. Right. So to see what this has devolved into now, and people just say, well, this is what we've always done. That's ridiculous to me, Jim. It's over the line. It tells me that players need to ratchet it down and realize that when you're throwing at somebody's head, you're potentially ending his career. It's not just to be cool.
Or his life.
Exactly. I mean, Daniel Ponce de Leon, I'm glad you brought this up.
Oh yeah.
Daniel
I want to tell that story. Yeah. I love this story.
3 years ago, he got hit in the head with a line drive. And I realize it's a little bit different whenever it's a pitcher and it's got an exit velocity of 109 but still, I mean, some 90. I promise you, if you get hit in the head with a 94 mile an hour pitch or 109 mile an hour line drive, it's going to hurt. But Victor Caratini is the guy in AAA who beamed one off of Ponce de Leon's head. He had a fractured skull.
Completely unintentional. Just a line drive.
Completely, yeah. He just couldn't get the glove back up in time, and he knows that, and he's always said that. Caratini visited him twice in the hospital. Ponce de Leon was there. Daniel Ponce de Leon was there for a while, having to have emergency surgery to relieve pressure, and it was really touch and go for the guy. And a couple of nights ago, for the first time since that happened, now at the major league level, Daniel Ponce de Leon faced Victor Caratini. So to me, that's one of those more tip of the cap. One guy's coming up in the Cubs organization, the other one's coming up in the Cardinals organization. Now they meet at the major league level where the two teams really don't like each other, but they carried it across the right way. I would like to see more of that rather than throwing behind people's heads when you're down by 12 runs. And the Rangers had every opportunity to score as many runs as the Padres. Period. Swinging the ball. If you're swinging the bat, if you're doing the basics of the game, you swing the ball, you hit the ball, you throw the ball. If you're doing one of those three things and the runs keep piling up, just suck it up. Suck it up. It's the other stuff that can be unwritten rules, if we want to call them that. So,
this is the same organization. It's the same organization that intentionally dropped a pop up last year so they could get a 200 strikeout. Like, to me, that seems a more violation of an unwritten rule than anything. You know what I mean? But
one would think so.
One would think so. I think the other thing too, with my emotional curiosity, my hoping for some intellectual consistency. I'm actually not a Trevor Bauer hater. I think a lot of things that Trevor Bauer says about how the game should be approached in 2020 make a lot of sense to me. Fan engagement, things like that. But I don't understand how Trevor Bauer can come out hard one day about throwing at people's heads and then wear free Joe Kelly cleats right before a game. And it's all within a 24-hour period. Like, does he not see the inconsistency in that thought process?
He clearly does not. He clearly doesn't see that. I don't know what the free Joe Kelly. Come on. I mean, this is. Yeah, poor Joe Kelly, right? Poor guy making buku of money every year, who's been told you can't play your sport for 8 games or whatever, and appealed that to keep on playing. Free him? Shut up. Give me a freaking break. No, not in this climate. To me, that's just it. If you want to talk about fan engagement, if you want to talk about where things should be, and Trevor Bauer wants to discuss those things in a right way, okay, cool. My problem with people like Trevor Bauer and Mike Clevenger and Zach Plesac, or you say one thing and you act a different way. Make those things consistent. Line those things up together, and then I'll be much happier to listen to your point of view. But right now, Trevor Bauer, you're too inconsistent for me to listen to you. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And everybody knows it. Sorry, I had to throw that in there.
So it looks like, let's look at the NL Central before as we wrap up. One, I got a little miffed because, we talked a little bit about how we're talking offline about how much I hate the fact that Jim DeShays is calling for the Cubs. Well, apparently in the broadcast yesterday, he talked about all the poor hitting coaches who lost their jobs due to the Astros stealing signs in 2019. I don't understand that at all. I don't see how that magic, that leap happens, but whatever. But it does look like the Cubs. I mean, are they running away with that division? Do you feel like the Cardinals have the ability to catch up with the amount of games they're going to have to play?
I'd catch up, no, but will they make the playoffs? Sure. I mean, the Cardinals got a whole lot of games to play, and in a weird way, I believe that the Cardinals have an advantage because they know the number they're trying to hit. Well, because there's so many games, just games played behind everybody else. So I think there's plenty of time there. The Brewers are at 500, where the Cardinals are a game below 500, but they played half the games that the Brewers and the Cubs have. So there's a lot of way to go. And Jim, this year is it's kind of crazy because of the number of debuts that we're seeing. So anything can happen. I did some homework. You'll be proud of me. I did homework, and I've got it here. I've just got to make sure I get the numbers right. Last year, there were about 290 debuts for the entire year in Major League Baseball. And that includes September call-ups, which that's kind of a big deal. This year, we've had 124 debuts already, and 42 of those are pitchers. Now, that may not seem crazy to people, but you've had 42% of the overall number of call-ups this year as you did last year, and 14% of the gameplay.
Yeah.
So if you continued at that rate and played 162 game schedule, you would have, what's that, 260% increase in the number of call-ups this year. The Cardinals are the best example.
But that is the interesting thing about this season. And I was looking at, the Astros have the fourth best team ERA right now for starting pitchers. Yeah. But none of those guys, like we used to play the game with Andy Tom Chesson, good Fromber, bad Fromber. Now there's just great Fromber. And look, I'm not, I'm obviously one of the things that grosses me out about Astros fans is all of a sudden they hate Garrett Cole for making, I never understood that about fandom. Like the dude was aces when he was here. He continues to defend your team in the media even when he's not here anymore. Yeah, he did what all of us would do, but it is sort of cool to see that Fromber has a lower ERA than he does. And it's not against Cole. It just shows you that there was talent there. That's really what it is, right? We're going to see whatever team has really developed their minor league talent might be who walks out with the World Series this year.
Yeah, you're going to see that, and again, like we talk about, until they get the book on you in the majors, until they really know what to expect, you're at an advantage, right? So as a pitcher, your first 3 or 4 times out before they really figure out what you're doing, they can get a good number on you. Same thing goes for hitters, right? Right. If I've never faced you before, if we don't have the book on you, well, I don't know if you like the ball up and in, or if you like it low and away. So if you're a breaking ball hitter or a fastball hitter or whatever, so. There's a lot of learning that's taking place right now. Now, if you notice in the past, it usually takes about it's a 30 to 40 game that you'll see a guy go on a streak, and then 30 or 40 games in, he kind of tanks. That's going to coincide just as we get into the final push, right? So that's why I'm not too crazy about the records and the standings and everything. I think the last 20 games, more like the last 15 games, are going to be an absolute scramble. Yeah, and I think to the finish.
I think for the Astros example, I definitely apply that logic to Christian Javier and Brandon Bielak. This is Fromber's 3rd year in the league. Trout said he's got the best curveball he's ever seen, and so I just wonder if he's finally put it together because he's now in the zone.
Right. And he's been asked to, right? He's been asked to. The opportunity is there, and that's what you see a lot of times is the opportunity arises and the guy rises to the occasion. I know McCullers got shelled a couple outings. He bounced back great. So it's the same type of thing. The Cardinals are doing the exact same thing, especially this week where you're playing 3 doubleheaders in like 5 days. You're grabbing arms. Let's go. And only a ton for us with Blues games, not starting until 9:45 at night too. That's been great. But only 2 of those starts, Wainwright and then Johan Oviedo making his major league debut went 5 innings. Everybody else went less than 5. So it's crazy right now, and we'll just have to wait and see. Buckle up, fans. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
So before we go, then explain your jersey.
This is the jersey that if people were watching in our 99th episode, not the 3-part 100 special, but if they were watching in the 99th episode, they saw this jersey being worn on the field by the O'Fallon Hoots. And I said I was walking out of there with one of these big bad boys, and I am a man of my word. I feel like I need a pro wrestling belt right now, the way I'm moving my hands around. But woo, I've got my Hulk jersey.
And we're going to put on a jersey. Yeah.
I walked down to O'Fallon, brother, and I told him I'm getting one of those jerseys, and this is the Hulk jersey, and what you going to do when Hoot-A-Mania runs wild on you?
Go Astros, a focus on H-Town hardball.
So we're jumping into Go Astros with Andy Tom Chesson. And Andy, I have a new theme song for the show. Here it goes.
right, dude. Suicide is painless.
So accurate.
Yeah, lots happened since Bregman's on the IL now. Jordan out for the season. Take it from there.
I mean, we might get Michael Brantley back this weekend, so that's something. I'm not worried about Bregman. It sucks. And every injury is magnified out the ass, really, because it is a 60-game season. We've already played 22 of those games. Literally, we're where we should be in a pennant race right now, trying to figure out why our offense isn't working like we would normally be doing in April and March and May even, knowing that we have a month and 2 weeks left of the season before the playoffs start. So it's just really, really confusing. Bregman's had 2 hamstring injuries in his career. One lasted 2 days, one lasted 2 weeks. I guess we're splitting the difference and putting him on the 10-day DL. IL. Excuse me. I'm never going to get that right, by the way.
Me neither.
This is like the creed in church. I'm Catholic. You had it one way up until I was 39, and then you changed it, and I'm never going to get it right.
And with your spirit.
Absolutely. What is that?
I don't even know.
That is George Lucas taking over the Catholic Church. It's a whole separate podcast. I'm encouraged by what I saw last night. I mean, obviously they had an offensive explosion after winning a couple of games against Colorado and even the series prior to that, where the offense just wasn't clicking. And Seattle's not a great team, so you get concerned about that. Colorado is a very good team. And so you're more enthused by the fact that you can win 2-1 games against them. You don't want to do that every night, obviously, but our pitching's really done well. But we can't keep sustaining injury after injury after injury. And I know you and I were having the same conversation last June. And in 2018, we were having it last June and July because everything kind of happened at once. And that seems to be who these Astros are. If you want to just look back at last year and put it on this year, I would fully expect Carlos Correa is going to have a car accident on the way to the park today. Somebody else will be driving, and it won't be his wife, and there'll be whispers all over Twitter, but that's what's going to happen. Now, that's the negative stuff. You mentioned Bregman's gone for at least 10 days, at least until August 30th. Alvarez is out for the year. Brantley's out until at least Saturday. I don't even know if Aledmys Diaz is still on the roster, frankly, because he went out with a strained knee and no one's heard from him since. He may actually be on a milk carton somewhere. I'll have to check when I go to lunch. So your lineup pretty much is Carlos Correa carrying everybody, Gurriel pitching in when he can, and then a bunch of other people trying to fit in. I'm really, really hopeful that we're seeing Springer finally shaking off the rust, and that, as we kind of talked about last night, Kyle Tucker finally adjusting to major league pitching, because that would go a long way towards alleviating the loss of Alvarez for the year, and also go a long way towards answering some questions about the outfield for 2021, 2022, 2023, and how you spend your dollars if you're Click and Click and Crane and the Astros front office. Altuve is still a mystery. He had 2 hits last night against the Rockies, but everybody on the team hit against the Rockies. We had 20 hits. So you'd like to think that he's hit into some bad luck. I still, as I've said a number of times, I have no idea why anybody throws him anything but a slider, because he can't
slider away. I don't know why
he can't lay off him. But I would guarantee you, if we flash back in time to 2004, I was saying the same thing about Craig Biggio. Because he also had a pitch he could not hit and swung at it wildly every time, and he ended up with 3,000 hits. Altuve can get hot. I hope that he gets hot, but I think he's the biggest piece holding back the Astros. I will say this past week since we talked last, his head looks like it's back in the game more. He's playing defense. He's making the plays he needs to make. He's not taking his at-bats with him to the field, which he was certainly doing prior to this week. Playing Seattle obviously helps that. So you hope if you can keep Correa, Gurriel, and Brantley comes back and continues to hit, that's a good solid 3. If you get Springer and Tucker to build on top of that, that's a good solid 5. And if Altuve and, eventually we get Bregman back, that's not a bad lineup.
Well, and most lineups in Major League Baseball are 3 or 4 guys surrounded by other just guys. Like it isn't, right. We're used to 9 deep, and that's not the typical anyway.
And I was looking at it. If you look at the batting order, Brantley comes back. He's effectively going to replace Tyler Jones, somebody who should not be in the major leagues, who's going to be our DH or first baseman today. He effectively replaces that. Bregman will come back. He will effectively replace Toro. And then you've got a very, very solid veteran lineup all the way up and down, including the guy I always fail to mention, who was really the MVP of the first 22 games, Martin Machete Maldonado. Who seems to have the ability to pick up this team when it absolutely needs an RBI the most.
One of the things I'm encouraged by too is you talked about Altuve's bad luck, and somebody broke it down, and he has the second worst bad luck on the team. Toro actually having the worst. Mm-hmm. We talk about expected hits versus. I think the thing I'm encouraged by is all these kids that are up here, Tucker, Toro, everybody but Mayfield, honestly, Taylor, all hit in the minor leagues and hit well in the minor leagues. Like they rake in the minor leagues. And so maybe eventually you'll get this like battle of attrition as more pitchers get injured around the league. You're going to start to see them facing pitching they can handle.
Well, I also think there's something to be said to the law of averages happening. We have quality hitters up and down our lineup, with a couple of exceptions when Bregman's out, obviously, and we're playing a guy like Tyler Jones. Toro is a guy who has hit at every level, to your point. And so I still look at this as we're 22 games in. This is still a slow start. If Altuve hits 185 in 22 games, somewhere in the middle of a 162 season, we're griping about it, but it's not nearly the issue it is with the timing and with all the circumstances around that. Springer's the same way, but Springer's showing signs, even with a gimpy wrist, of really starting to go on one of his tears, which I'm enthused.
He should have had 3 homers last night. He
easily
baseballed,
and they weren't. I always like to see George Springer swing the bat when he's not swinging out of the seat of his pants, and I know that's part of his brand. But when he's going well, it looks so easy, and when he's going bad, it looks so hard. And last night just looked so easy. So I'm hoping that that's going to continue, and he goes on one of his little mini nuclear tears. Sorry. The other great thing about the Astros right now is that as bad as the offense has been, it's 15th in Major League Baseball in OPS. We've dropped pretty precipitously since the first few weeks of the season. The pitching has saved our asses. Third best ERA in the majors right now, behind Cleveland and the Dodgers. That's how we're 4 games over right now. That's how we're on a 94 win pace if we were playing in a real season. And I see that getting better if Verlander's able to come back. And even then, you're having a question of who do you put Verlander in the lineup for?
Right.
Christian Javier, Brandon Bielak. None of those guys deserve to lose a job yet. And obviously you're going to pick Verlander, but that puts a pretty good weapon down in the bullpen too, which is still an area that, even though it's been better the last couple of weeks, is still an area where you could see improvement and hope to see improvement.
As long as Biagini doesn't pitch.
I never want to see.
I think we should give him his little therapy puppy, but it should say DFA on the tag, and then take the puppy back.
At least he has learned, or maybe the media has learned, to stop asking him questions so he can throw his lame jokes. And yes, this is absolutely a Jack Parkman situation where all the ladies love his shimmy. He was the funniest guy when he first got traded and was part of a no-hitter in his first appearance. He has steadily become not funny.
Not funny.
All the ladies hate it when he does his little shimmy.
Last question before we get out of here. I'm not a guy that's ever going to hate on a guy that was a former Astro, that's now a former Astro when he was an Astro. I think Garrett Cole did everything we asked him to do. I think he still stands up for his team. So I think people delighting his not being lights out is a little lame. However, as we sit right now with Fromber having a better ERA, can we stop the good Fromber, bad Fromber game? Can we officially put that?
I think we're to that point. He honestly, Fromber showed some signs at the end of last year in a couple of games where we needed him to be able to actually stop walking guys at a Josh James level rate. Sorry, I had to
he still thinks he's a starter. You're not, bro.
Yeah. Okay. You could start at the end of the bench, I guess. I think Fromber is a guy who it took him a couple of years, and that's to adjust to major league pitching and adjust what he can do and what he can't do. And he's still going to have an inning like he had not last night, but the start before that, where he's going to walk a few guys because he's just not a Greg Maddux type pitcher where it's all location, location, location. His success is all that pitch sequence. And getting guys, he was effectively wild when he first came up. Walked a lot of guys, but you couldn't make solid contact on him. Now he's a guy who is understanding how to pitch and how to use what he can do to get hitters out. And he's doing it a lot more consistently. And I think it's, again, the Astros and their ability to turn pitchers into really good pitchers is something that speaks really well. And I hope we find some way to take Brent Strom's DNA and clone him when he retires after next season.
This just in. News from minor league baseball.
We do have some breaking news for you today. We have just found out, literally, as I get ready to hit export on this episode, that the normal Corn Belters are coming back. They just put a release out on Facebook that they are excited to introduce the Colonel's Fall League. The Colonel's Fall League will begin play on September the 4th. And the games will be held at the Corn Crib in Normal and then a couple of other parks near the stadium. The Friday Night Spice will be a unique experience for families and these players. They look forward to hosting fans for what will be an entertaining Friday night series starting September 4th through the 9th. More info to come. Look, we think this is an awesome idea. We have heard grumblings about other pod leagues that have been around the country for starting something very similar. The normal Corn Belters seem to be the first ones to pull the trigger. That shouldn't shock you because we know that Matt and those guys out there are really forward thinking. So we are excited. We hope that we're able to get out this fall to see a ball game.
And now on to close it out, the right-hander from Houston, Texas, James Christopher.
So that does wrap us up for this episode of Let's Get To. And for the closing it out segment, we're bringing in another reliever, another arm.
Yes.
The right-hander from San Antonio, Texas. My wife, Jessica. How are you doing?
Doing good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
100 episodes. What have you thought so far?
I've really enjoyed the ride so far. It's been really exciting to just get out there, see a lot of baseball that we didn't know about before. I think we've made an awesome set of new friends that we wouldn't have met otherwise. And so just the connections that you've been able to make in the past. How many months has this been now?
I guess
it's quarantine time. So, you know.
Oh. Yeah, right. It's been 8 years since we started the show.
It kind of feels like it.
And the Astros have lost 4,000 games since we started. No, I mean, really, I guess it's been about 20 months.
Okay.
About 20 months since we launched.
In that amount of time, I feel like you've been able to make a ton of great connections.
Yeah.
We've seen and learned about a ton of teams that we didn't know about beforehand.
Yeah.
Even some new leagues that we didn't know about beforehand.
I think
that's really awesome.
I think that has been the best part.
Yeah.
I think, I guess it was Jess Canastra who said that the thing he misses the most about all this is the people.
Yeah.
And I think some of the people we've met, particularly being able to lean on them in this pandemic just for a break has been very important. What is your favorite ballpark you visited? On the spot. She did not prep.
I did not prep for this one.
Prep for this.
New parks that we visited. Can I pick a minor league and a major league?
Sure.
Okay. Because I would say Busch Stadium was so much fun. Didn't know about that. I mean, I don't know that we went to that one as a kid because how new is it?
Because no, you did not.
I would have gone to an older
That one was
version.
famously closed down, but ignored by the general baseball media, by the Houston Astros in 2005. I have a championship ring right there, Scott. But just show Pujols' home run, the most meaningless home run in baseball history. I get. You had to say Busch Stadium, didn't you?
I'm so sorry. Should I change it to Petco Field? That was
our good friends in San Diego would love you changing it to Petco Park. Yeah.
Okay, so those were my 2 major leagues, but I would say part of it was just the experience of being able to do it with Jordan and Max and Braxton. The Tacoma Rainier Stadium experience was so fantastic, and being able to share that with the family was awesome.
Tacoma really was one of, all in all, it's hard to because we go to so many of them and we want to go back the next year and we know that we just can't. I know we're going back to normal next year. That might be the only repeat because of just time.
Well, and I should also say, it's not fair because I'm immediately taking out the, awesomeness of Whataburger, Round Rock, Dell Diamond, even the Sugarland Skeeters. Those are all great parks that we enjoy, but we go so often, so it wasn't like a new experience.
If you mention Whataburger and Dell, we'll get a bunch of bang, bang, buzz, buzz Astros comments.
They just happen to be here in Texas and really, really easy for us to get to.
Really easy for us to get to. I don't know that anybody would do that. Yeah. I think we've cultivated a pretty good thing. Now, one of the funny things about you is you're that person that's on your phone at a game.
Yeah.
But you're not paying attention. So, because we're old.
I know. So I look at the baseball games as my opportunity to learn about and discover new music that I wouldn't have otherwise known about. And so I really love the walk-up song with all of the batters and hearing what the cool kids are listening to today.
We're not cool kids anymore?
No, we're so not. We're so not cool kids. So walk-up songs. So I'm usually Shazamming.
And you picked 3 that you've really liked.
I did.
We don't know how old they are. Some of them might be really old.
They could be very old. I think I'm going to sound really silly saying some of these names because I'm I don't even know how that's pronounced.
Yeah.
So.
What did I say when you played a Drake song? Oh, he's a little harder than I thought. I kind of just thought he was sort of this Toronto Raptors fan who was a little wimpy.
Well, and it's funny too, because for the most part, the walk-up songs might be the only hip hop and rap on my playlist, but it's not my normal genre, but I really enjoy it when I'm at the game.
So you picked 3.
I did pick 3. So we've got, I'm going to try to remember them all. We've got Drake with.
You want to look at your phone?
No. I'm just laughing because I don't know how to pronounce it.
That's the other thing, too. Because especially going to Houston games, it's a lot of Latin flavor.
Oh, yeah.
And
I think it's pronounced Galchester.
Okay. We're going to go with that.
And I think it's old. I think it's been around a long time.
I feel like Scotty from Before the Pitch is roar, and he's going to old people. You know what? Go for it, Scotty. We welcome the fun criticism.
The next one is Kendrick Lamar. DNA, which actually, if I'm being totally honest, I heard first on the Rocky trailer.
Okay, for Creed 2.
Creed 2, yes.
Or Rocky 4-A.
Michael B. Jordan.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's Rocky 4-A.
Yeah. But it's a great song. I really enjoyed it. But I think I actually physically downloaded it when I was at a baseball game.
Okay.
Last one is King of the West. Again, I'm going to mess up the name of the group, I'm sure. But it looks like it's SATV. Hold on. This one I will look at my phone.
We're going to look this one up.
SATV Music?
Yeah.
Is that how, or is it like SATV?
Wow.
I mean, that's how out of the loop I am. I'm so sorry to all you music fans. But I've enjoyed those 3 songs very much. And I've got a whole playlist of other ones that have been great too.
I do want to do a second to and to thank you and let you off the hook.
Thanks.
We've been married 20 years in 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yes.
You've never said no to a crazy idea. And I really appreciate you not saying no to this one.
Of course not. I've enjoyed the ride. It's been a lot of fun for me too. So it's not totally selfless. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I guess that wraps us up for this episode. We'll be back next week with, we're going to be talking to the now Carolina League champion, Macon Bacon.
Yeah. Congrats to the Macon Bacon.
Fry them up, Bacon. I don't know if they do that. And then Chris Almendares is going to be back. And then next weekend, we are going to be out of the Joliet Slammers. So stick with us. Keep watching. Keep giving us your feedback. Keep chiming in the conversation. And until next time,
let's get to.